Hey everybody, it's Michael from Nagios, and today I'll be going over how you can migrate your Nagios Core environment to Nagios XI. Migrating to Nagios XI enables you to have a more robust monitoring platform, equipped with centralized configuration, advanced reporting, and the easier management and setting up of your hosts and services. In this video, we'll go over 2 ways on how you can migrate from Core to XI, ensuring that you don't lose any critical data along the migration process. Now let's get started by taking a look into our Nagios instances. Now to get started, you'll need an instance of Nagios Core and XI up and running, as well as root access to both of them. Here you can see I have an Nagios Core instance up and running that I've loaded with some generic hosts, as well as services, in order to see if the migration works successfully. Now let's head over to XI to see how to get started. Now, if your Nagios Core infrastructure is pretty straightforward and doesn't require too many intricate configurations, you might want to use the inbuilt automatic migration tool within XI. That can be found within both themes of Modern and Neptune, and I'll first show you in Modern, but skip to the timestamp if you'd like to see it in Neptune. You can find it under Admin, Monitoring Config, and then Migrate Server. Here, you'll be able to input the IP address as well as username and password of your core instance, as well as decide if you want to overwrite any existing config files upon migration, as well as define any paths to any config files that might be in a non-standard location. Now, not everything will migrate over. Any custom plugins will need to be re-imported, and that can be found again under Admin, System Extensions, and then Manage Plugins, where you can browse and upload any plugins that you might want. After putting in your information, you can hit the Migrate button, and after some time, the 4 buttons will turn green, and you'll get a success message. When done, you can confirm that it worked by going Configure, Core Config Manager, and then under Tools, go to Config File Management, write the configs, and then Verify Files. Now, you can apply the configuration, and you should be able to see your migrated hosts and services on your XI instance. Now, if you'd like to see it in Neptune, you can change your theme by going to the profile icon on the top right, selecting your profile, and under User Interface Theme, selecting your desired profile. And we can get to the same pages from the Neptune theme by going to Admin, Monitoring Config, Migrate Server. Additionally, you can find the plugins importing by going to System Extensions and Manage Plugins, as well as the Core Config Manager, where you can find the Config File Management tool, as well as the ability to apply configuration. And that was the automatic process for migrating Nagios Core to Nagios XI. Now, if the automatic process didn't work for you, there are ways you can manually move your configuration files from Nagios Core to Nagios XI, then run a prep tool in order for those files to work in the Nagios XI infrastructure. Here you can see I have the same Nagios Core instance with the same hosts and services, and I'll be manually moving these configuration files of these objects to my XI instance in order to populate my hosts and services. Now let's head over to XI to see how to get started. Here we have a fresh XI instance with the already defined Google and local host as well as their services. But in order to be safe, we want to take a snapshot of this configuration in order to revert back to in case anything goes wrong during the migration process. This can be done by going to Config, Core Config Manager, and then applying a configuration. Now this will live in your configuration snapshots as the most recent one. Now let's take a look at the Nagios XI and Core files in order to see how we can manually migrate them over. Now here, I have a terminal session open for both my Core and XI instance. Now we can find the configuration files for our Nagios Core instance by going to User, Local, Nagios, etc. Here, you'll find all the configurations and the configurations for the objects, which is what we're really after. Now what we want to do first is make a temporary folder in our Nagios XI instance in order to hold our configuration files from our Core instance. We can find the configuration files in the same place under User, Local, Nagios, etc., where we'll make a temporary config folder. I'll call it CFG prep. Now on our Core instance, we're going to want to make a tar of all the files we want to move over, and then send them to that Nagios XI temporary folder. Now we want to send that tar file we just made to our Nagios XI temporary folder. After the tar is sent, we want to move it into the temporary folder. Here we can see that our CFG prep folder now has our tar file, and we can go ahead and decompress the tar. Here we can see all of our configuration files in our temporary folder. Now after decompressing the tar and getting your configuration files, you're going to want to move them into a subfolder so that you can run the XI prep import tool in order to get them ready to import into XI. So we'll go ahead and make a subdirectory and call it orig. And then we'll move every configuration file into that subdirectory. Now we can run our prep import tool. Next, I'll be running the XI prep import tool on all the configuration files in order to get them ready. The tool will be found in User, Local, Nagios XI, Tools, and then it'll be called XI prep import. And I'll run it on every file with the configuration tag. And when done, you should be able to see all the configurations located in the CFG prep folder. Now let's head over to XI to see how to get these imported. Now to find the place in order to import your files, you can go to Configure, Core Config Manager, and then under Tools, go to Import Config Files. Here you should be able to see all the folders and files you just made. I'm going to decide to import my Linux server, the commands, my contacts, localhost, as well as my switch. Now if you didn't have any configuration set, like in templates or printer and core, you don't need to import them into XI. When you've selected all the files you want to import, you can select the import button. And when you get the message, you can go to Config File Management, write the configs, and then verify files. And if you get no warnings or no errors, you can apply the configuration. And when done, you can go to host status and see the pending hosts that you just added, as well as the services. Now to find this in Neptune, you can go to the profile icon on the top right and change your theme under User Interface Theme. And from the main Neptune screen, you can go to Config, Core Config Manager, and then under Tools, you can see the Import Config Files, as well as the Config File Management. And then back up for Quick Tools, where you can apply that configuration. And that's it. You've now seen 2 different ways on how you can migrate your Nagios Core environment to Nagios XI. If you ran into any problems along the way, or need a little help, please visit support.nagios.com. And you can always find any more helpful content on our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep on monitoring.